so speaking about colors, right? Said, this on this episode of Unpacking, we're going to unpack the pact.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, let's unpack that. So the question is, why unpacking, right? Like, you guys are like, we met in church, we understand each other's purpose, we were good, we had our careers going for us and all this stuff, and decided this is the one. This is the one, right? I remember the moment I told my mom, I'm like, if this guy asked me to marry him, I'll say yes. Just like, huh? Like, cause again, there was no fluff with us. Like, and I was at a point in my life, I was like, like, okay, here's the list of questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Okay, what do you think about this? Like,
Very systematic,
very,
intentional.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
structure.
I wanted to know that I know that I know that I know that we could, you know, have fun together. We could laugh together. We enjoy music, politics. Our political views were aligned. How we compassion for people and those kind of things. And I was like, and he got glimpses of my crazy, like the travel, the I feel so strongly about this. I'm going to go rent 3 buses and take orphan children all around Nairobi and let's create a program for breast cancer awareness and let's do this. And he saw it all and he was still like, yeah, she the one. So I was like, okay, let's do this then. And so now here we are, almost 15 years later. We're like, well, we're going to unpack that.
Yeah. And it's funny because previous episode you mentioned that a lot of people don't understand how we're not together because we fired in so many cylinders um in sync, you know. But getting to the crux of it is uh again, maybe not, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as childhood trauma, but it's like self-knowledge and self-awareness, and it's always a journey. And uh how do I how do we start to unpack this?
Okay, so let me help. I'm the questioner.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what's going to come out, so I'm trying to get what I need from this conversation.
Yeah.
So we talked about happiness in previous episodes.
Mhm.
We talked about the happiness started to erode,
Mhm.
and you asked me, "Are you happy?" I asked you, "Are you happy?" Right? I do remember very poignantly times when you were like, "I'm just not happy."
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
When did you start to realize that? Like,
Mhm.
I don't think it's 2019.
No, I think it was early, and I think
And what was your reaction to that? Because I think when you realize you're not happy,
mm,
then you start to find ways
mm,
to create happiness.
right, right. That's accurate.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I don't think it was 2019. I think one point that really sticks out in my mind as me having been unhappy was early 2017. Um, and it may have started in 2016, but 2017, when we moved to Indiana, I was very unhappy. I think, in hindsight, again, 2020, not the year, 2020 vision. I think what was happening at the time was I had left my previous job in 2016. I retired. Yes, I retired. And I wanted to spend some time with the kids, so I was not in a hurry to start working we were working, and I because of all the travel and stuff, and me not having been present as I would have wanted for the kids, I was like, okay, I want to take some time and just be with the kids and get to know them. So that I spent much of 2016 doing that. And then 2017, when I got the contract in Indiana, we moved there and had started becoming restless because we're like, okay, I want to do something. I don't want my career to stall. And so I started applying for jobs at a very high rate, hundreds of jobs, you know, and every single one I get a rejection, rejection. And at first, I'd brush it off like, yeah, whatever, it wasn't for me. I'll go on to the next, right? But it kept happening, even for jobs where I felt I was so qualified and stuff that I was doing, like, I could do with my eyes closed. I'm still getting rejected. I did get one or two interviews with companies I wanted to work for. I bombed the interview, you know, for whatever reason, ball of nerves, or I didn't prepare well, or didn't prepare the right things. So I didn't have a lot of it weighed on me very much. Um, and I think your question was what, like, how did I handle that, or what did I do about it, to paraphrase. And I think um, I I I went into myself rather than seeking help or talking to you. I kind of went inward and kind of coiled up and felt very defeated, felt very uh, inadequate, felt like I was not doing what I wanted to do, and what not so much what I was expected to, but what I wanted to do. Um, I don't think I was driven so much by I need to be the breadwinner. No, I don't think that's ever been my thing. I've always felt it's a partnership, you know. But I wanted to contribute to the partnership in more meaningful ways that I felt I was doing at the time. And so I think the where it it felt started falling apart for me was um, and I started to look for attention elsewhere because and it's not your fault. It's not because you're busy. Not any of that. I think it was just I was just looking for something for somewhere where like I felt uh, heard and seen, and it's not that you didn't hear or see me. I didn't actually come out and tell you what was going on until you know later, much later. Um, and so what ended up happening was I had these groups I was in on WhatsApp and whatever, and I connected with people on those groups, and some of those people we stuck up friendships on the side outside the group. Um, and this story, I'll kind of jump in time like back and forth, so in a way that hopefully will make sense. Um, and so that's what ended up happening. And some of those conversations kind of evolved and became a lot more intimate. And uh, these were not even people who were in the US. It was females, it was girls. You know, they were in Kenya. Uh, I was here. There was like it was never in the plan or whatever for me to uh, go to bring them here or any of that. Like we were just it started off platonic, but then became uh, more than that. They became romantic kinds of conversations. Um, so I think underpinning all that, and this is something that I started to discover about myself during the counseling of that period, was I've always had a very strong and deep desire for connection with people. I I feel a lot of empathy for people, but not only that, always seek out meaningful relationships. I don't like to do casual. I don't do um, surface. I like to go deep, and that's one of the things that drew me to you. Was that our very first convo was very deep, you know, um, and so that desire for connection, when I unpack my past, my history, uh, goes back to even when I was a teen, because I remember um, among my very early like relationships as a teenager, 15, 16, um, there's this girl I really liked, and very nervously because I'm a shy guy, uh, asked her out, which in Kenyanese means that I asked her if we could date, and she agreed. The problem was I liked her. I also liked her friend, and I I couldn't pick between the two. And once I asked her to date me, I knew asking her friend to date me would be off the table. Like that's not gonna happen. That's all. She's not gonna agree. Um, but so I found that even when I went to college, because that was I think my next major relationship,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was I met this girl in college. We dated, um, and then at the same time, I also liked this other girl. Right? So it was like a recurrent theme that I liked more than one person at a time. Right? And so 2017, jumping ahead again, that period was just
And even when we met,
yes. I mean, you saw you know
mm-hmm.
how like
There were multiple people kind of floating around. And so were we dating? Like it wasn't official
yeah
before.
yeah.
We were talking in whatever this new age language is. We were talking, but there was always flotation devices around. So I was like, look, I can't do this. And so we stopped. I was like, no.
Mm.
And then I was done. And very painfully so. Then Mr. Man calls me one time and I reluctantly answered the phone. And I think I was in Botswana at the time. Um, and you were like, oh, uh, where are you? Blah blah blah. Of course I'm rolling my eyes like, why do you care where I am? That's none of your business because you're not in my life right now. I don't know why I'm answering this phone, but I'm just here talking to you for no reason.
That's a bit dramatic.
But it's true,
Yeah.
that conversation was not an easy one. And he was like, I can pick you up from the airport when you fly in. I was like, you know what? I've not scheduled my taxi. So that does not sound like a bad idea. Fine, you can pick me from the airport and we'll talk. And then from that conversation, you're like, you needed time to let go of those flotation devices, right? Basically, to make a solid decision as to for us to date. So I think it was after that now that I was like, okay, we'll see. But yeah, I felt, I trusted that your word at that time. And then, um, like, after that, you proposed. I said yes, right?
Mm.
And then it's funny you're saying this now, but then literally not too long before our wedding, something else happened. I can remember. I have like my memory is a bit photographic, so I usually remember where I was when I find out something. And I was at my girlfriend's place in Michigan. I was visiting with her when I was like peeped because we were very transparent. We had like passwords and stuff like that. to each other's accounts or email,
Mm.
whatever.
Mm.
And I saw some not very,
Innocent.
yes, innocent communication with another woman. And I told my girlfriend, I was like, girl, I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know. So I confronted you about it. You're very apologetic. Oh, so this, I don't know, whatever. But apparently it worked. Like, I believed you. Then let it go. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about that until today. Since then, I do lock things up. Don't mind that. Sometimes I bring other stuff up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Yeah. So as you can see, it's been a recurring theme. Uh, and what what happened was um, basically I was cheating emotionally. Let me just not try and sugarcoat stuff. You know, we're all grown ups here. Well, hopefully, if your kids are watching, that's fine too. This is life, and it's not something I'm proud of. It's not something that I set out to do or was planning to do. And then I'll talk later about what I discovered in that um, during this journey. And so I was basically cheating emotionally. Um, I, I wasn't willing. Back to 2017, I wasn't willing to give up these deep connections that I had started forming, and um, that was a problem. Obviously, it was a problem because, like Naya had said, like from the beginning, she was not, you know, she wants to be the alpha, and that's it. And there's no, there's no beta. It's not just her, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you're like the only one,
Yes.
right? That's what I meant. And so
This English.
it was not, yeah, it was an untenable situation. But I, I wasn't, I didn't want to give them up because this had,
They fulfilled
right,
a need.
right, yeah, and instead I tried to hide them, and in so doing, between that period and like 2018 or whatever, and up to through to 2019, it just became increasingly
2017, 2013, 2018, 2019.
yeah, yes. it
Even before. The reality is, like, when you have a, emotional attachments to multiple people, from my experience being on the other side, I was not getting the emotional attention.
right, right.
Now, I don't know if that was by choice, right? And then that translated emotional, physical. Like you were just, I felt like there was a ghost in when the song says there's a stranger in my house. I was like, who the hell? Like, what is this? Very rote. Like, I get up, I take the child to school. I do my photography. I look for a job.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
wife,
Mm-hmm.
drive.
Mm-hmm. That's a good Google dance, maybe. But I hear you. And I think it was not intentional. I didn't want um, to like deprive you of emotional fulfillment, but it was a consequence of me hiding these relationships and wanting to nurture them without your knowledge, you know? And so at that point, I view you as a barrier.
Obstacle.
Yeah, as a barrier to me nurturing these other relationships that are feeding me emotionally. Um, and so it was just a downward spiral because from me depriving you of that emotional and physical fulfillment, you started to also reject me, even in times, times when maybe I'll um, want to then, you know, uh, pursue you, and like you were not available because I was not available. So it became this vicious cycle of, um, you know, uh, what's the word? Uh, like the word has just slipped my mind. Very simple word, not a fancy word. Rejection, right? So um, I felt rejected, but you felt, and of course, you felt cheated. You felt hurt. You felt that I was emotionally unavailable and just rolling like a zombie, right? Which I can't deny because that's step looking at it now, I can totally see that picture, you know, and that's what started to erode um, our relationship, first romantically, but also emotionally, and it's led to you being basically physically repulsed by me. And I remember that you didn't want me in your space, and um, you know, again, hindsight, it's completely understandable, right? So, what I'm trying to say here is, in not so many words, it was my fault. It was me. I own that fully, right? Because, and I know some that people who say, don't take all the blame. I said, no, I did this. What your rejection of me was because of what I did. Mhm.
And we can talk about that because when you have like you're saying you're nurturing other relationships, and then I was the blocker,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and you said like Alpha, like, look, I'm the leader of this pack,
Mhm.
like and I didn't know because there was trust, right? There was trust, and all I felt was rejection.
Mhm.
This wall,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Yes, you notice the change in behavior and a bit more secrecy and stuff like that. And I asked you repeatedly, what is going on? You want to talk about this? No, oh, it's family stuff and this and that. And maybe you didn't have the language, or, I mean, who does? Not excusing it, but it's just like, I don't think your first response would be like, well, since you've asked,
Yeah.
and nurturing these other relationships. And,
Mhm.
and for me being the type of person I am, who's like very black and white,